super exciting. And I have a special guest on today. This is Tremaine. She is a financial consultant and expert in helping people get out of debt. And she's just through the conversations that we've had, she's helped me with a lot of things. And today we're on here talking about money mindset. Do me a favor when y'all get in here, and I know some people are going to be watching on the replay as well. If you're watching on the replay, it's like replay in the chat. I appreciate y'all. And then also let me know where you all are from. Let me know in the chat below. Also, one last thing, right? If you can ever relate to ever be in debt, owing anybody money, which is not fun, or anything of that sort around debt or owing money, put a one in the chat, and we're gonna get to answer your discrepancies today about money mindset and getting out of debt. So, yeah, Tremaine, take it away.
Yeah, so first, Lauren, let me just say thank you so much for having me. I don't take it lightly that you have extended an invitation for me to join your platform. I know how you feel about your folks, right? Super protective.
Yes.
And so I appreciate just being here. We're gonna have a good time tonight.
Yes, definitely.
I used to be a former teacher, and so while I love talking about money, I probably like educating about it even more.
Yeah.
So this is a safe space to ask questions for those of you who are going to be tuning in live. And even if you have questions watching the replay, type those in the chat too, right? Because we can always come back and answer them, just to make sure that you get the information that you need. So I want to spend some time today, like making sure that we have the appropriate mindset when it comes to paying off debt, saving, investing, building wealth in general. So that we are not repelling wealth, right? Because we know everything starts with our thoughts. And if we don't have healthy thoughts around money, it's going to be very, very hard to build wealth. So that's what I want to center our conversation around today, and just make sure that, we are not afraid of what it could look like to build wealth.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And so I'm not sure if anybody else has this question, but what is kind of like the difference between, okay, having money, having money here or there, and then building wealth? Because wealth is such a different topic that I feel like people interchange the words like having money or being, rich and then wealthy. So I don't know. I feel like that's a good start. Could you kind of give us the difference between the two and why it's so important to know the difference between the two?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, right? So when I think about the difference between being rich and being wealthy, one of them is like a short-term situation where the
Yeah.
other is long-term maintenance, right? When we think about somebody being rich, they usually have like an influx of cash, and it can quickly go away, right? So if you get a new job and now you have a six-figure salary, but you also spend all the money, you might be rich for the moment, but because you are spending everything, that's not wealth.
Right.
Right? So rich is you got a lot of money coming in, but it's not creating more money. You are burning it up and it's not working for you. Wealth, on the other hand, is where you might be making a lot of money, but also that money is working hard for you and generating more money, right? So
Yeah.
wealth is the ability to turn your assets into more assets. It's not just, oh, I have a lot of money for this moment or this period. Is no, this money is going to continue to grow, ideally indefinitely, right? We think about some of these families that have long generations of wealth year after year
Yeah.
after year, where the children are coming in to a trust or a family legacy, and they never have to even think about what it might mean to work, right?
Mm.
That's what it means to build
Right.
wealth, where the money is working so hard, you don't have to go to work if you don't want to.
Mm. Wow. So on the idea of building generational wealth, why is it so important for people to know how to do that earlier on in life? Because honestly, a lot of us, me included, aren't thinking so much about the future because we're trying to stay in the present moment. We're trying to be mindful of the thing and stay in the present moment. And that's a huge thing that I'm aware of, like present moment awareness to minimize anxiety for future thoughts. And there's a lot of things, especially in your 20s and your 30s, people are wanting to maybe like settle down, build families, pay off their student debt, and not really thinking about what am I gonna do 20 years down the line or 30 years down the line? Because we're just like focused on what's going on right now. So how can we get people to see even exchange in between investing your time in the current moment, but also looking towards the future and seeing that wealth is something that you want to build in the future and not just like get the richness out of your physical assets right now.
That is such a good question. You ask really good questions, right? So, what you're talking about is striking a balance between spending money now to live life now, and then also putting money to work for your future self. And it's hard, right? Because you have to be intentional about that. And for many of us, because we are young and vibrant and able bodied, it's hard to think about a future where we are not moving and active and working for money for the
Mhm.
average person, right? Because some of you might be watching this and you are independently wealthy already, and more power to you. I'm not talking about you. But for the vast majority of us, when we are young and we don't think about what would happen if we're no longer able to work, it's just this thought that we have that, oh, well, if I need to make money, I'll just go make some more money. But what happens when you're at a point where you're tired, your body is fatigued, right? Um, and you just don't have that same vivaciousness to go out and get it.
Yeah.
That's where it's important where you have money working hard for you. If you start to build that in your early 20s, your early 30s, it becomes a huge engine so that by the time you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, it's printing and reproducing money for you so that you can rest and slow down, right? So, the biggest piece that we need to do in our 20s and 30s while we're young is yes, you want to live your life, but not at the expense of your future. So you have to identify what's the balance you're willing to strike. Does it mean, okay, I'm going to save 10 to 20% of my money and invest it so that it can grow? And then I'm going to ball out and have fun with the other, 80 to 90%, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so you have to figure out what that balance is for yourself and protect the money your future self needs to have. Because sometimes we just think about right now in the moment, and it can be hard to shift off that survival mode. Because if all I can see is right now, of course it's going to be challenging to think about the future. But in order to plan for your future self, you got to see past right now. So if you're watching this and you're younger and you're like, man, it's hard. Like, I got to make day to day decisions about just like the things I need right now. How can I shift and think about the future? Just tell yourself it won't always be like this, right? And as you start to believe that, you will identify ways to change your financial situation,
Yeah.
right? You won't always be in debt. You
Yeah.
won't always be in debt. And sometimes it may not feel like that, especially if you got student loan debt, okay?
Mm-mm.
But
Put
Uncle
put
Joe,
some
Uncle
yeah.
Joe has been forgiving. He's been in the forgiving
Mm.
business.
Yes. And put something down in the chat if you have a student loan debt because I definitely do. And it's not fun paying it off, but realizing that it's not, like I said, gonna be forever. That this is something that you invest. Sometimes like investing is something that you gotta see through months and months or towards years and years. But it's, kinda like you invest something right now because you know that with, like, calculated they calculate interest and all that, whatever. But it's also the mindset that comes with it, like, you invest something right now in your college and in your career for your later career to pay off because you're going to make X amount of money, and by the time you get 4 years out or even 6 years out because they have loan forgiveness for a certain amount of time, and those student loans sometimes don't start kicking in until like maybe 2 years later after, and then your job or whatever is going to actually be able to pay off that amount of debt, but what happens when you're still, like, unfulfilled with the type of job that you have? Because by that time, you're like, "Oh, whatever I went to school for, it's not even what I wanna do anymore," or, I don't even have the same mindset that I did when I
Mm,
was in college to be able to, afford this and that because things come up. So, I don't know, I like to hear stories. So, what are I guess, what was, like, a time that you realized that y it wasn't the mindset that you had before about saving or getting out of debt or what have you, it's not the same mindset that you had to now have at the time that you need to get out of it that you had when you first, like, incurred the debt, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
you
that's
have
a
these
good
stories.
question.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I got stories for days, y'all. Stories for days. And you know what's interesting before I dive into that is like, even though I have been a licensed financial professional for over 10 years, when I first came into this industry, I came fresh out of college. And
Mhm,
so I was very young, very naive, and I had a lot of learned behaviors that did not align with building wealth. So there
mm,
was a lot of things I had to unlearn in order to adopt the principles um I knew, like, textbook wise, but like knowing in myself and from my environment, it was a clash, right? It did not align. So to kind of like to start, I got so many stories. Where I want to start? I'll start with this idea of like hustle culture, right?
mm.
I My very first introduction to money was me making money from braiding hair.
Okay.
So I started braiding hair when I was 12 years old.
Oh, okay.
And listen,
Come
y'all, I don't know if y'all can hear my knuckles cracking, but um, I braided hair for like 10 years. And I was really, really good at it. Like, y'all know how Iverson, I don't know if I'm telling my age, but Iverson used to have them fishbone braids and like the designs all over
on.
the
Yeah.
place. That was me, okay? I could repeat and do
Oh.
any style of cornrows in folks' head, right? Artist with the braids. But now, my knuckles paid for it, right? And I had developed like this fast money mindset where if I wanted to buy something, I would just say, "Oh, let me just go do some hair." Right. And I would go do the hair. I got the cash in my pocket. And then as quickly as it came in, it was gone again.
Mm,
Right. But I was young. I had a whole bunch of energy. And I was just like, "Oh, if I want some more money, I'll just go do some more hair." Right. It wasn't until I was probably about 18 or 19 where one day I was doing micro braids. And for those of you who don't know who micro braids, I know this most of you guys on here are like familiar with locks, but micro braids take a long time. Okay. They
mm,
take a long time. And even though I was young, 18, 19, standing up for a long time with not the proper shoes that you're supposed to have on, I started having back pain.
ooh,
And I was like, I am too young for this. What is this?
mm,
Right. And so that fast money was taking a toll on my body, and I started to feel aches and pains. And I was like, oh, I gotta figure out how these people making money and not hurting
yeah,
because this can't be life, right? This can't be life. So I that's what inspired the type of degree I got in school, which I have a accounting and economics degree, right? And that's what led me to be interested about money. But I knew how to get it quick, but I had no idea how to build wealth. None at all. And so, me experiencing that pain in my back and my knuckles cracking and just thinking like this can't be it. That's the shift I had to make was from how can I not use my hands and do manual labor to make money to thinking about how are folks making money with what's in here? That's what I need to do, right? And so that's what inspired me to make that transition. Now, if stuff hits the fan and I have to go back and rely on a skill, I can still braid, right? It's a nice thing to have in my back pocket. But what we want to do is make sure that we're not relying on manual labor and trades as our primary source of income and not building cash reserves because the arthritis will arthritis, right? And the aches and pains will come. So that's one shift you got to make is how can you start to use what you know to make money?
Mm.
I don't even know if I answered your question, but
No, that was good because I think what's so important is to realize that everybody has a story behind how they got to where they are with the way they think, what you know, and I feel like what you just said, like what you know is super important. And hey, everybody in the chat, and we're talking about money mindset and not just building wealth, but the mindset to build wealth and know that wealth is in alignment with your path in life. Like some of us don't even I realized recently that I had a money mindset issue, like because a lot of us have been taught in hi Sora, sorry. A lot of us have been taught throughout our life, right? Let me know if you've ever heard this, that the love of money is the root of all evil. Like let me know if you've ever heard that one, right? And growing up, not really directly hearing those words, and let me know if you've heard that in the chat. Put a one in the chat if you've ever heard that or something like that. It manifests itself like subconsciously, is way back in the subconscious. So when things happen to where we get bigger opportunities or we have opportunities to grow our oak, as they say, um grow our wealth, like we sometimes sabotage ourselves on opportunities of learning more about that, of gaining wealth, because we feel like, oh, I don't want to be too materialistic, or
yeah,
I don't want to focus on getting rich or getting rich quick, or getting wealth, but not knowing that it's not necessarily the physical thing that we acquire is going to change anything about us, but it's really the get rich quick mindset, because it's a mindset that comes along with wanting to get something quick for a quick result, like microwave results. And
yeah,
that's the issue around the love of money is the root of all evil. And that comes from the Bible verse. I'm not sure where in the Bible it is, but that comes from a Bible verse that it says, um, the 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 love of money is the root of all evil, not the money itself.
yeah,
And the chasing of that instant gratification, the chasing of that instant thing. Muhammad says, one, it would cause you not to want to pursue money. Definitely agree. Good Rain says, hello, I struggle with consistency to save money, respecting to pay myself first too. Ooh, that's a good one. Respecting to pay yourself first too. And see, this is bigger than just money in itself, because obviously, like I know personally, the mindset that I've had around money is really coming from a mindset of overall lack,
yeah,
of not feeling like you'll ever have enough.
yeah,
And it's kind of like the same thing when you get a plate of food and you feel like that plate might be your last meal. So what you do, you start eating real fast. You start scarfing it down because you feel like it might be your last. You might not get any more food ever. And that's what we often do with money when you're talking about how we get money. And people who want to get rich quick, they often, have that lottery mentality where they get the money and then they spend it right after because they don't have the mindset. So it's really not even about the money. It's like the mindset comes first, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I wanted to touch back on what you said about that quote, right? That the love of money is the root of all evil. And oftentimes when we hear it, we just hear money is the root of all evil. And so we developed what's called a money script around that. And that particular money script is money avoidance. And so, what that looks like is you start to tell yourself that money is evil. Therefore, people who have money are evil. I don't want to be evil. So, I don't want to have a lot of money. Right. And so, you push back into your subconscious, or it lives there. Sometimes it comes to the forefront. And so, anytime you step into opportunities to save, invest, build wealth, get a higher salary, you turn the other direction because you connect having money, building wealth to being an evil person. And many of us are like, I don't want to be an evil person, not realizing that money itself has no character, none at all, right? It takes on the character of the person who is controlling it. So if you are a person who is a natural giver, right? If you are somebody that will give the shirt off of your back, when you have more money, you're just going to give more, right?
mm,
If you're somebody who has never been a giver, guess what happens when you get more money? You still not gonna be a giver, right?
yeah.
So the money itself, like you mentioned, it doesn't have any characteristics. All it does is expose your nature and amplify it.
Mm.
So we have to break down this belief that, oh, if I have more money, I'm going to turn into this greedy person. That's not true. Unless at your core, you were already greedy. You just didn't have the resources, right? So, one thing I always love to encourage is like, if you are somebody that wants to impact and like inspire, motivate other people, do not be afraid of building wealth because that's only going to help you amplify your goals, right? Because you have more resources and you're just going to do more with what you have to pursue and push that mission into the world, right? So we can't be afraid of building wealth and stepping into abundance because there are folks who are not so nice that are not afraid of building wealth. And so they push forward their character and their nature. And so if our objective is to combat that, then that's what we have to do.
Mm.
Right. So I'll share what the other money scripts are just so we can have an idea, right? Because you might be listening to this and you're like, I don't avoid money. I want to be rich right now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But some other of the money scripts are money vigilance. So this can sometimes happen when folks grow up in poverty, where, like you mentioned, you may not know where your next meal is coming from, and so when you do get extra, you hoard it, right? So sometimes folks who have the money vigilance script, they will save a bunch of money and they won't spend on anything, right? So if you think about what's it, Scrooge? Am I thinking about the right person?
Scrooge is from A Christmas Carol, so
No, maybe I don't know if that's him, but it's the one where he just hoarded all of his money. He was very, very frugal and he wouldn't spend it on anything. I can't think of who I'm thinking of,
oh,
but
that's Mr. Krabs mentality.
there we go.
Mr.
Okay,
Krabs.
Mr. Krabs. Let's go, Mr. Krabs. Where like it's not that you don't have money. It's just that if given the choice of purchasing something that is $2 and something that's 200, even if the $2 thing is gonna break and you have to replace it, you'll buy that time and time again instead of spending the $200, right? Because you don't want to allow that money to leave your hands, even for things that may be of value, right? So that's money vigilance. Then the next one is money worship. This is the one where you think money is the answer to all problems, right? And sometimes when families have high wealth but little time, they'll throw money at problems. You might have a child that you don't spend a lot of time with because you're working so much. So what do? Give them high allowance, buy a bunch of cars, send them on trips, all kinds of things, right? And then the last one is money status, and this is the one that is rampant on social media where people are leveraging their money to buy material things to elevate how other people perceive them, right? So you may not even want a designer bag, but because everybody else thinks the designer bags are cool and you want to be perceived as cool, you buy a designer bag, right? That's what money status does. A lot of us have no desires to have big homes, but because it's cool to show them off on social media, what do? We go buy the big homes, the big nice cars, all of the expensive lavish things because we want to be perceived as important, right? And a higher status. Now, let me just preface this and say, if those are things you actually truly care about and you would never show them off ever, but you just value it, more power to you, right? I'm not saying don't buy nice things. You can have nice things. But there's a difference between having it because you actually want it and value it versus having things because of how it makes you appear to other people. That's what money status is. So those are the four money scripts. And you can kind of think about like where you fall among those based on what has happened in your childhood, different traumas, things like that.
Mm. Yeah, I can definitely relate with the third one. I think the third one is probably what most people can relate to the most. And I would imagine that out of those two, I think the first one was the hoarding, the penny pincher, right?
Vigilance,
The
money vigilance.
vigilance, right? And I don't remember, but I remember like how you explained it. The second one is like when you just I remember the third one. The third one, when you want to look like you have
Status.
enough money, right? The status. And then the second one, you you feel like there's not much substance there in the first place. So you make up for it for buying nice things, or dad wasn't present in your life. He's always on a work trip, so he's like, here for birthday, here's a Lambo, because I'm not able to make it to your birthday, so here's a Lambo. I definitely think that, like, most people can probably relate to 2 out of 3 of those, maybe even like 1 or 2. um how do you feel like that relates to how we, like, receiving those type of money, and forgive me, I forgot what they were called, but
Scripts.
those money scripts, right?
Mhm.
Receiving those growing up in your most critical part of your childhood
Mm.
affects your adulthood, and if there's any of these that people can relate to, and let me know in the chat which one you relate to, because y'all, I know one of y'all relate to. I think I relate to the third one the most, honestly, actually. Um, if somebody relates to any one of these, how and they notice it in their adult life, how can we work to reframe our mindset around this and start to deconstruct and unlearn some of these things?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. Um, it's important to become self-aware, right? And a lot of the journey, like working on our mindset, helps with that because you start to notice things that you assume were normal, but aren't actually contributing to you functioning at your highest level, right? So, one thing I learned about myself was like I had a money avoidance script where I believed that, you know, building wealth was wrong. And as an advisor, you probably can see where there's some clash there. How can I give advice teaching people to build wealth when I myself had a script that was telling me building wealth was wrong, right? And so I started to, of course, I went to therapy, right? And started to learn the things I had boxed away and like taped up and didn't want to open again, right? And so for some of us, one of the things we did in order to cope was we just put it in a box and we tucked it away deep in the recesses of our mind, and we just don't address it. Just because you don't address it doesn't mean it doesn't show up, right? So we have to do the work to go back into those deep recesses, pull off the tape, open the box, see what's inside, right? Because even though you might have taped it and put it back, that doesn't mean it's not leaking, right?
Mm,
Some of that stuff is still getting out. And so going to see like what's back there so that I can fully operate at this next highest best level of myself is important, right? So we got to be open and willing to do the work so that we can step into those next levels, cuz if we don't confront it, it's going to keep coming with us, keep coming. And sometimes it's coming but it's also pulling us back. So we're dragging like bag ladies, right? All
yeah.
of the things that want to hold us back and keep us from building wealth, right? And if you're not careful, some of these things will talk you out of opportunities that you are perfect for, but because your mind is telling you that, oh, that's not for you, you'll continue to sabotage and run away from things because you don't know why.
Mm,
So yeah, we just gotta we have to commit, always commit to doing the work, that deep self work, and becoming like super, super self aware.
mm. Self-awareness is key in all aspects. And I'm want to acknowledge Muhammad's comment. What I think about this is that the priority in this time is to denounce materialism and vanity, and that may come by way of turning down the pursuit of money and riches. Now, can I be super transparent with you all? So, and this is like just a little story that goes hand in hand with this script that I built around money and mindset. So, I mean, a lot of you all here on the Holistic Flow channel, y'all been watching me for a while and have seen my growth into the channel. And as you all continue to support the channel, I'm offering different things to you all. And currently, um, I had a retreat. I had a retreat that I was offering you all, and nowhere before did I ever ask any one of you all on the channel, did you all wanna go to a retreat? I never asked anybody. What I thought was that, "Oh, I want to offer something to my subscribers, to my supporters, to the people of the community, and, um, what is the highest amount that I could get paid?" I'm gonna be completely honest, that's what I asked myself, but I was in denial that that's what I asked myself when deciding to have a retreat, and so I raised about $2,000 on Facebook from friends and family, told them like, "Yeah, I'm having a retreat. It's gonna be a mindfulness retreat. It's gonna be in Pennsylvania and whatnot, whatnot." A lot of you all have seen me talk about the retreat on my live streams, and recently I had come to the conclusion, I had to come to Jesus moment that I gotta be honest too, nobody signed up for the retreat. Like, it was about 6 months of just letting people know about the retreat, and the reason why I closed down the registration for it was because I realized at some point I was actually forcing it to happen
Mm.
because I wanted it to happen, and not only because I had raised money for friends and family and didn't wanna let them down because they invested money in my retreat, but because I realized it was never in alignment with what I was supposed to be offering in the first place. And the reason why I offered it was because I wanted to see what was the highest amount of money that I can make as a yoga and meditation teacher, and retreats are high paying. So I actually didn't take into account a lot of things and misstepped a lot of things because of that. And so now I'm doing other things that don't involve and reconstructing my mindset around the mindset of or the fear of failure or fear of success, etc., because that goes right along with the money mindset of the feeling of lack or feeling like you'll never have enough, or that first script that we tell ourselves that we kind of like hoard things and we feel like we'll never have enough. So yeah, I just wanted to share that, and like that was a great segue into it because
Yeah, that's good. Thanks for sharing that. I have a similar story, right?
mm,
And so I'm in the financial services space, right? So for those of you who don't know, I am a investment advisor. So I manage assets, right? I invest on behalf of other people. And traditionally in this industry, you don't work with folks who are not ready to invest, who don't already have, $100,000 to put into the market, right? And when folks have higher net worth, it's expected that you're charging, you know, 10, 15, 20, $30,000 per year to provide those services, right? And so that was part of the motivation for me wanting to be on my own, was like, oh wow, I could do this by myself. I'm going to be a gazillionaire advisor, right? Because I'm brilliant, people love me, right? But that was not where my heart was. My heart is in education and teaching and helping people start their journey. And that is a much different audience, right? You cannot charge 10, 15, $20,000 a year to that audience, right? And so, kudos to you for one, sharing, and two, realizing like how important it is that you are in alignment with your services and what you offer to your community, because when you follow impact, the money will come, right? And so I think that that switch for you is going to be what allows you to step into the next level of abundance, because you're going to be rich by the people you impact, right? And so the money will come, right? And so that's one of the reasons why the model of my firm, right? We are focused on helping people start and grow. Over time, of course, it'll grow into a larger company, but for now, at the beginning, do not despise humble beginnings, right? Help and serve, and your audience and community will take care of you, because there's value in helping people from a place of alignment. So,
yeah, that is so true. It always comes back to serving service first.
yeah.
Truth be told, a lot of entrepreneurs and business, whatever business that you have, it's most likely that the reason why you're in business, or the reason why um your offer is your offer, is because you maybe had struggled with that same thing that you're offering. So you want to help people get out of that same thing or get transformed in the same way. So it's sort of like you're helping yourself at the same time, which is why the transformation is so is so powerful and
Yeah.
it's so purposeful because it's from, like you said, out of the goodness of your heart and not just for you're not looking to the return. The purpose always goes first, or else eventually, like Muhammad was saying, eventually it may cause you to not even want to pursue money, or the pursuit of money in particular may lead to, other things down the line that you did not account for negatively when you could have just stayed on the path to purpose the whole time.
Yeah, yeah, that's important, right? Especially like as building a business and creating partnerships becomes easier, right? Because like it's so easy to just connect with people online now. You have to not be driven by money because an opportunity or collaboration or a person will seem like it's a good idea because there may be dollar signs connected to it. But you may not know that that opportunity has bad soil, right? It's bad ground, and you
Yeah,
don't want to be connected to that because that could block other things that you should be spending time, energy, effort on, right? So it's important to like always keep top of mind like what is the mission, what is the purpose, what is the impact, how do I need to move so that the relationships I'm in, like I always want to be connected to good ground because it's a lot of folks out here that scam. Just point blank period, right? And especially when we're talking about money, you got to be careful to not be connected to folks that are doing janky stuff, right? Because those connections, even though you may not have been in the wrong, the guilty by association is real.
yes,
So being driven by impact and purpose, I think for many of us, the more self aware you become, it's easier to notice and see um, the authenticity of other people. And you can kind of steer away from stuff that doesn't align because people can only pretend to be what they aren't for so long until you're like, this ain't for me. Right.
yeah,
So always leading with that impact and purpose and like, how do I make sure I'm serving at the highest level will guard you from getting into some of the wrong rooms.
yeah, for sure. And I have experienced that firsthand looking at, oh, this is what could have been if I kept going down that road. Like this is something that could have happened. In hindsight, you hindsight is always 2020.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Abdul says, I think the struggle is that man to man, white, red, yellow man need to let us go and allow us to reclaim our rightful place. Money keeps us connected, possibly against one's will.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Can you imagine like what we would do if money didn't exist and we had to go back to like bartering and
And
listen,
right.
it'd be different, right?
Yeah.
You would totally have to shift your mindset.
Yeah.
Um yeah, that would be interesting. I
Mhm.
wanted to get back to the core of what we wanted to talk about today was like, if you have college debt
Yeah.
and you still are feeling unfulfilled, like what is it that you should do, right? um and I think it's interesting how many of us, we go into school and we're like, oh, I want to be this when I grow up, right?
Yeah.
And then you grow up 5 years and you're like, I don't want to do that,
Right.
right? But you got these college bills you got to pay, right? So what do you do with that? And that's part of like learning how to steward and manage your finances well, is identifying what it is you want your money to do, what purpose you want your life to have, and how you can use your money to fund it, right? For many of us, I think we get trapped on this hamster wheel of living paycheck to paycheck because we haven't identified like what we want our life's purpose to be, what we want to use our time, talent, and resources for. And if you can get clear on what those things are, you can pull your money into alignment and create strategy for it, right? Where decision making becomes easy, where it's no longer, oh, what am I going to do? Well, my mission, my values, my purpose, these are the things that, I define my life by. So this is what I'm going to spend my money on, right? I want to make sure that my family's taken well care of. Okay, so the extra money that I have goes to making sure my family's taken well care of, right? And it becomes less of a burden on figuring out how to steward and navigate your money well, because you have clear definition of what you want your life to mean, and you just use your money to augment that, right? So we didn't mention none of the resources yet, but there is a a free template guide for you, right? And Lauren's going to drop the link, but it is a budget that you can use, a debt payoff calculator, a one-page financial plan, something to help you plan your 7 streams of income, and all of these are bundled together. You'll get it to your email so that you can start to think about how you want to craft and shape your finances, right? The best way to relieve financial stress and overcome financial burden is to have a strategy, right? To have a clear roadmap on what you should do. So that way it's not confusing, right? You don't have to guess and, follow the next new shiny thing. It's like, no, my plan and my strategy is to be able to do this, this, and this. And if the things that are coming before me don't help me accomplish this, and this, the answer is no, right? But you got to have a this, and this so that you can make clear, definitive decisions. Indecision and procrastination are not our friends. All right. So leveraging budget, debt payoff calculator, one-page financial plan, putting those resources together is going to help you become clear and definitive, right? So when somebody says, "Oh, hey, we should go do this thing. It costs $1,500." And you go check to see, does this thing fall into alignment? It doesn't. The answer is no. And now you don't got to feel bad about saying no, because it just doesn't fit with where you're trying to go, right? If you need to blame somebody, say, "Hey, this lady that was telling me how to align my finances with my values told me to tell you no." Right? You can blame me if you need to blame somebody, but the more you practice saying no to things that don't align, the easier it's going to roll off your tongue.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Say no to things that don't align.
Yeah.
That right there. That right there. Yeah. And I just dropped it in the link. Or I'm sorry, dropped the link in the chat. So that resource right there is definitely helpful for those who may not be like numbers people, like because how many of all us, you're not you wouldn't say you're a numbers person, right? But what happens when we're not like numbers people, and I used to not be a number person, is that you can get into a cycle of kind of like getting your paycheck, right? And then you're wondering what your budget is instead of just like kind of like looking at a outline of your budget and like looking at your expenses and incomes. Because when you know your numbers, it's a lot easier to be secure in your financial decisions. I recently started doing looking at literally every single expense that I make per month. And I was not doing that before. And every single income that I make per month, and then putting them side by side. And I can tell you it's not as stressful as it seems. We actually think that it's like if we look at our numbers, we're gonna get stressed out. But it's actually like if you look at your numbers, you're gonna be less stressed. you know?
Because there's
So
no surprises.
yeah, there's no surprises. You just you actually have that security. So yeah, that's definitely a gem. That's definitely a gem, y'all. So check it out. I put the link in the chat. It's definitely a good resource that you're gonna want to take advantage of for sure.
Yeah. And then our last gift for you tonight is if you are somebody that needs a little bit more hand holding, right? If you're somebody that's like, "Hey, I definitely want to get out of debt. I need help budgeting. I know you told me to look, but I still don't understand," right? There is a free 14-day trial into my community where that's what we do. We help you create your budget, create your debt payoff plan, help you get started with investing, and walk you through it in a way where it's not offensive, right? Not everybody starts off as a numbers person. Not everybody was taught what to do with money. And even if you were taught what to do and you just didn't do it, so what, right? You need a safe space to make sure that you can get back on track. And that's what this community is, right? To help you identify what values you have and how you want to create your budget and the plan for what you want your finances to do. And so, free 14-day trial into the Breakthrough Financial Coaching and Accountability Group. Try it out. If you like it, stay. If you don't, cancel. Right? But at least you got access to the community and learn some additional free things.
Yeah. And I just dropped that link as well. Finally get out of debt, build your savings, and begin investing. So, not only about getting out of debt, but also investing, which a lot of us um, should probably do a lot more and know more about so we can be more secure. Because I personally started investing maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, and ever since then, having that kind of safe pocket, that pocket of safety is like whatever's in your, I guess, main checking savings, you can put just, some of that into your longer term investing and maybe even find out what to invest in because there's so much information out here
Yeah.
on investing in this and that, and cryptocurrency and stuff like that. Things are always changing, y'all, though. So
Yeah.
this is a great way to stay up on current events because especially if this is election year, y'all. This is so this year,
Buckle your
things are gonna
seats.
change. Buckle your seat, put your seatbelt on, just stay strapped up because this year things are definitely going to change. So yeah, that's a great resource. Mike Gant says, I agree, you must live for what aligns with your joy and safety, not just get caught up trying to live a certain lifestyle or seem like it. Yes,
Yeah.
so true. So we want to walk the walk and talk the talk, not just fake the funk, as they say. Right? Like we don't want no fake, no falsivity here. So yeah, that's all. I got a lot of questions out of this. Now it's you all's turn. So whatever questions that you all have for Tremaine, because she's very experienced and she's an expert in the financial investment space. So drop your questions down in the chat or whatever questions that you have for either of us, really, about money mindset, about any of those 3 scripts that she talked about, of anything that really resonated with you throughout the chat. Drop it in, or throughout the live, drop in the chat right now so we can leave just a little bit of space to answer your questions. And yeah, I know, Tremaine, do you have anything else, or what else do you have to sort of speak to the whole, like, getting out of debt, or maybe where to start getting out of debt?
Yeah, that's good. The first place you got to start is with the budget.
Oh, nice.
Right? Because you need to know how much money you have available to pay your debts back at an accelerated rate, right? One of the common mistakes I've seen is folks will get super excited to pay off debt, but they'll spend too much and then they have to put money back on the credit card, right?
Mm,
Because they didn't check the budget to see how much money they actually had, right? Just because you have money in your checking account doesn't mean it's available to spend, right?
mm,
Sometimes it might be money that you need to leave there for an upcoming bill, or just to make sure that there's money ready when it's time for you um, to make that next payment. Oh, I see this question. How can you feel less overwhelmed when college debt is really high? That is a great question,
that's
right? College debt is crazy. And it's unfortunate how you can be paying debt for so long and the needle not move, right? And that's one of the downfalls of the interest compounding daily on many college debts, right? So one of the things you can do is prioritize getting that paid off. And also, I know you're not gonna like this answer, you gotta make more money.
mm,
We have to make more money, right? Because I can say, hey, you got a budget, hey, you got a budget, hey, you got a budget, right? But if there's no amount of creative budgeting that you can do to provide enough money to pay it off faster, you got to go make more money, right? So sometimes we have to recognize that, the amount of debt I've taken on is going to require me to go seek a higher paying job. And if you have a college degree and you have the debt that aligns with it, you got to make sure the income you're generating from it matches that return on investment. So if I have $150,000 of debt, I need to make sure that I am getting paid a salary that makes sense, right? I can't have $150,000 worth of debt and get paid $40,000 a year. That's not a good ROI, right? And ROI is return on investment. So if I find myself having high monthly debt payments, you got to go find a high monthly salary. All right. Now, there are some programs that you might qualify for depending on the type of job you have, right? But you want that to be a bonus and not the driving factor of where you work, right? So if you're a nurse, right, or you're a teacher and you can qualify for some of those forgiveness programs, that's excellent. But we should be able to make enough money so that we can cover our expenses and pay them off at an accelerated pace.
That's good. That's a good answer. I feel like a lot of us maybe aren't that opportunistic in like seeking out higher paying jobs, or we don't know what salary we may need
Mm,
to make those monthly payments on time, or maybe even like round up the monthly payments so you can lower the amount that you have to pay it off over, so that you can lower the overall amount of money that you need to pay back. So that's good.
yeah, that's good. I saw something pop up about the 7 streams of income, and unfortunately, I got to go teach in my community in a few minutes. But
Oh,
what I want to do is I want to invite you to come back next week for our class, right? So we're going to teach, well, I'm mostly going to teach to you guys, but we're going to come back and we're going to talk about what are some actionable steps you can take to budget, save, pay off debt, and invest. And those 7 streams of income, I'm going to break those down in that class. It's free, so you don't have to pay anything to join us, but come back so that you can come to that session where I'm going to break that down. And you can take really good notes on it. All right. So sorry, we talked for a long time. This was good.
yeah, it was
This
really
was
good.
good. But yeah,
And
I gotta
so
go teach in my community in a few minutes. So
awesome. So what I'll do is I'll screenshot the rest of you all's questions, and I'll go ahead and Tremaine and I will go ahead and take questions. We'll answer them in next week's little training. Okay, so we'll have that training same time, same place, y'all. We're on 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll go ahead and make sure that those questions are the very first questions that we go ahead and answer in that training. So come back the next time next week. Thank you all so much for joining us today. If you got really, really good information, go ahead and give this live stream a thumbs up, because, and also if you're on the replay, type replay in the chat so we know that a lot of you all watch this on replay. And also the thumbs up will allow other people to find this because it's really helpful information. And check out the link in the description box to get that free resource for you all. We'll see you all next week, same time, same place. Thanks so much, Charmaine.
thank you for having me.
All right, thank you all. Bye.